Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for attending our final event in the Centennial Conversation with Composers virtual series. Many of you have been with us now over the past several weeks as we have done three other interviews with some of the composers who we've commissioned this year as part of our Centennial. And I hope that you've really enjoyed this sort of backstage experience. So you could get an idea of what goes into creating a new piece of music and bringing that to life. Tonight, I am so excited. I cannot wait for this concert to come. We have four very special guests with us. So first we have Grammy Award-winning bassist, composer, arranger, producer, a great musician, John Clayton. We also have with us just a world-renowned trumpet player and conductor, Byron Stripling. We have Bill Dobbins, who is a professor of jazz and contemporary media, the director of the Eastman Jazz Ensemble, and in fact, tomorrow night will be Bill's last concert with us before he retires. And finally, we have with us a member of the Eastman Jazz Ensemble, Lael Dratfield, who is the bari saxophonist in the band. So you'll get to hear Lael tomorrow night. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad that you're all with us. So let me start with John. I know that your piece is in the mail. It's in transit, and I should mention to everybody we're pre-recording this, so don't worry. The band will be ready. We're recording several weeks early here. So, but I love the name of the piece. Keys are black and blacks are key. So I was wondering if you could tell us about the piece and inspiration and whatever you want to say about it.
Sure. I hope I don't take up too much of the time trying to trying to explain how it all came together. But when you asked me to do this, I started thinking, of course, about Eastman. Eastman's located in Rochester. Rochester, among its vast, important historical contributions, has a rich African American history, as you know, and with the Underground Railroad, this being one of the hubs of that, with Harriet Tubman back in the day, and slaves either continuing on to Canada from here or staying in the area, that sort of thing. Frederick Douglass, of course, came here and is buried here. There's just so much of that. I couldn't ignore that. And it just so happens that it's probably known by a lot of you, but house slaves during the slave era, house slaves that were fortunate enough to have a piano in the house would discovered that if they played on the black keys, it was reminiscent of their homeland music, because in Africa there was the pentatonic scale was widely used. So I started thinking about that, and I thought about my dad, who didn't live with us, but he would come by regularly. He played one thing. I wish I had a piano here. He played one thing on the piano that was kind of a bluesy kind of a thing. It had a nice groove to it. It was all in the black keys, and that theme stuck with me. And I thought, maybe so. Anyway, long story short, that theme is actually the primary theme for the whole piece. Um, it's funny. I was at home visiting my mom, who's still at the house, a few weeks ago, and I was telling her about this great opportunity, and I said, "Do you remember?" And I started playing that, and her eyes got wide because my dad's been dead for quite some years now, and she said, I haven't heard that since he was alive, you know. So anyway, it's a very strong family tie for us. So that theme, I was thinking about, I've got to go from that. Incidentally, one of the cool things, Bill, I wrote this theme for you to play, kind of like my dad would play, but I've also, you probably heard that I'm also having a detuned piano as part of the program too. So what happens is this detuned piano, which should be about a quarter tone flat, is going to play in unison with you. When you play the theme, hopefully it will create this really eerie effect almost, I don't know, kind of hopefully not nightmarish, but
Yeah.
dreamy kind of vibe. So that's just a little something to listen for. Um, but I was thinking, okay, well, how am I going to progress from there? The next part, movement, if you will, of the piece, um, I kind of needed something lively, and I thought about a 12/8, almost African-ish influenced groove, which could be more lively. And I was thinking, okay, I'll compose a theme around that feeling, around that kind of a vibe. And I started thinking, unfortunately, recently I lost my brother Jeff, and it just dawned on me that he wrote the perfect theme for that groove. So I've developed his melody, his theme around this 12/8 groove. So I've got my dad represented, and I've got my brother's melody in there as well. That's probably the biggest portion of the piece, I have to say. Um, and then I wanted to continue, of course, and I thought, well, okay, now I need a little bit more contrast. The third movement, if you will, needs to be. And I thought, well, let's see. I got my dad represented. I've got my brother represented. Why should I stop here? So my son Gerald wrote a song that I really like called "Some Always." I basically, I was stealing enough thematic material, so I took his harmonic material, the chord changes from that song, and changed it up. It was in 3/4. I did mine in 4/4, and used that as a vehicle to feature kind of a combined, Clay Jenkins is on trumpet, and um, who's the sax instructor?
Charles Pillow.
Yes, Gerald. So Charles Pillow. Charles is going to. I really wanted a thing with Charles and Clay that would sound like one. So we've got the saxophone with the trumpet. I kind of want it to sound like a traxophone. I want it to be so in unison. So I wrote with their sounds in mind, this piece based on uh, Gerald's chord changes, and then I end it with a more of a celebratory ending, and I'm also involving. I told. Um, well, Jamal, you may recall that I needed some guidance in terms of involving somebody from Rochester that would be an excellent poet. And I ended up through via, thanks for your tips, discovering this amazing woman here in Rochester named Rena Golden. And she heads up this black box theater and kind of an art center, especially with a focus on helping minorities. And she's got people underneath her. I called her, told her about this, and said I was hoping that you could direct me to somebody that could help me introduce a poetic component to this. And I told her about it, and then she said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to recommend anybody because I want to do this myself." So I'm
Uh,
so excited because she's black belt. She's the
yeah.
real deal. So there's going to be three segments of the piece that allow her to contribute. The first part will allow her to reflect however she wants to on some of the African American roots of Rochester. And then the second part will allow her to talk about Eastman and why Eastman is important and what it's supposed to do and what it does, etc. And the last part that she'll contribute will be celebrate. Why are we celebrating? Why should we celebrate? And that then brings us into the last part of the piece. So uh, I hope I haven't used up all of our time with that lengthy explanation, but that's and one last important part, of course. Not only do we have the big band, the school big band, which is going to be five trumpets, four trombones, tuba, five saxophones, piano, bass, drums, guitar, but we also are featuring. I'm excited to say it's almost a kind of a concerto grosso idea because we're featuring the jazz faculty quintet, yourself, Bill, with Charles and Clay, Rich, and Jeff Campbell on bass. So I've always kind of circled back to make sure that all of the faculty is featured in the piece as well. So that's it. I probably don't have anything else to say because that's everything.
That is fantastic. That just, I remember our first conversation and having some of those thoughts that you had right away about trying to do that. So it really sounds like you found a way to capture so many great elements and essences of this. And for those of you who are local, you may know Rena Golden is she runs the Avenue Black Box Theater and very, very involved in the local arts community here. And as you say, a real powerhouse. So I'm so excited to hear about all of that.
Good.
Yeah. So, and we have another new work on this concert tomorrow night. And again, as part of the Centennial, we commissioned more than 50 composers to write works. So much of the Centennial is about looking back and honoring our history, but a big part of it is moving forward and launching into the next century. And so one way to do that was to make certain that we are generating new works. And I'm so excited that Bill is also writing a new work, and a work that features Byron. So Bill, why don't you tell us about your piece?
Well, I didn't know exactly what to call it for quite a while, but I ended up with the title Legacy. And I wanted to write a suite, but something where the movements were connected. And I knew that I wanted it to begin and end with a celebratory kind of mood, fanfare kind of theme. And then I had the idea generally of a medium tempo swing, a ballad, and something up tempo that would return to the celebratory fanfare kind of thing that happens at the beginning of the piece. So I called the beginning and the ending sections Anticipation. Anticipation had to do with, I'm sure, the anticipation of the founding of the school, what it would become, what it would be like, but it was also connected to my anticipation of joining the faculty in 1973, what this Eastman experience is going to be like. The first thematic section after that involves some improvising, and Byron's featured throughout the piece, but then we're also going to have some soloing from our lead alto player, Stephen Hardy, our lead trombonist, Michael Goldstein, and our drummer, Isaac Schwartz. And the first section after the opening starts with a shuffle kind of groove, and it's called Synergy. And that I think was a term that I'm sure really reflected the Eastman School as it started out. That was one of those situations where the whole was definitely much more than the sum of the parts. And I definitely had that feeling in the beginning of the jazz program when I first came here. The students that were here working with Ray Wright and Ray Ricker and all the amazing guests that we had visit the school during that period. The slow section, the ballad, I called Gratitude, because that's probably it's a feeling that I not only have toward the school, but it's something that I really experience every day. The first thing every day when I wake up is just spontaneously a feeling of gratitude for another day, and wondering what can be accomplished in that day. And then the final section that's more up-tempo is called Passion. Sometimes the word passion is associated with slower music, but the reason I use that word is because the first impression that I got here when we came in '73 was that everybody in the school, and especially in the jazz program, they were so passionate about everything they were doing and about what was going on here. So those are the different sections. Sometimes I like to just get a snippet of melody or some basic thematic idea from somewhere as a sort of self-imposed limitation when I write any kind of a piece. So I was thinking about letters in Eastman's name representing notes. So I decided on the first three letters of Eastman, EAS. In German, S is E flat. So there's there's a motif of those three notes that's involved in the thematic sections of all the big sections of the piece, and also the fanfare-like opening. And then even though I haven't really done so much with the use of numbers, like the numbers of notes, 0 being whatever tonality you're in, and then the other notes from 1 up to 11. But the transition from the fanfare section to the first theme is 1922 in the key of F, which is G flat, D, C, G natural. And oh no, it's G flat, D, G, 2 G naturals. The ballad is in D flat, so that ends up being 1972, which was roughly the beginning of the jazz program in terms of having some kind of curriculum here. So that ends up being D natural, B flat, and A flat and E flat in the key of D flat major. And then the simplest one is 2022, which back in the key of F is just G, F, G, G. So there's a little fanfare motif that introduces that theme. Anyway, those are some of the musical things that went into it. But my reason for thinking about Byron was just that I had such a great experience with him when he was a student here. We did some playing together around that time, but just I was so inspired to follow his career after he left Eastman, from getting the starring role in the show Satchmo, where he portrayed Louis Armstrong, and seeing him develop as a trumpet player, a singer, entertainer, his involvement with the Columbus Jazz Ensemble or Columbus Jazz Orchestra for a lot of years. And then I just noticed in his bio something that I hadn't been aware of, that he recently was appointed as the chief pops conductor for the Pittsburgh Symphony. So I thought, I want to write something that will fit Byron's abilities as a trumpet player and be an opportunity for him to come back here and have one more last go around before my retirement.
That's great. I was going to ask about sort of, where do you start with the composition? Well, it's really fascinating to hear sort of the approaches you took to using Eastman, or putting numbers to it, or actual letters, and that's quite fascinating. Well, so Byron, you've been back many times, often as a guest with the RPO, and I have to say, every time I've seen you, I just keep thinking the lights shine brighter when you're in the house. You bring such energy to it. So how's it feel to come back and be a soloist with the Eastman Jazz Ensemble that you were a part of, a few decades ago?
Well, such an important part of my life. Normally I can control my nerves, but for this one I won't be able to, because the school means so much to me. It was part of my early development. I came in about 1979, which is close to like Bill being there for just 6 years. And it changed my life. Everything. The first thing I heard was 4 saxophone players in a small practice room, and they were all standing around a metronome on 2 and 4, and they were trading 4s, and they sounded amazing. It was Brian Scanlon, Walt Weiskopf, Nelson Hill, and one other, Andy Weinsler. And I was like, if this is the way everybody plays here, I just need to go home, because I'd never heard people play that well. So then I got myself together and started practicing, and things worked out okay. But man, what a joy to be on the stage with with Bill. And of course, if you might allow me, I want to say a few things about Bill. A lot I can't say. No, I'm just kidding, Bill. But allow me to just for 1 minute, just say, tell John Clayton that I love him, and he's also another mentor. John, I love him so much, and so to be on stage with him, that also makes me nervous, because most of the major things that happen in my life, I ask John how I should do them, or what I should do them, or if I should do them. I usually say, and even when my brother passed, I called John and said, "Your brother just passed. How am I supposed to handle this? Because I'm a wreck right now." And John calmed me down and gave me a phone massage, and I was a lot better. So I'm always in debt to him musically, as he's written so many works for my big band and allowed me to play with his band, especially. Everybody's got to get the album. What's the one with Milt Jackson, John?
Yeah,
Explosive.
that's great.
Whatever it's called, Explosive. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great record.
That's it.
everybody's got to get that record because Milt Jackson and John Clayton's arrangement together with Jeff Hamilton's drumming is the world. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Sorry, Jamal.
No, that's what we're here for.
Okay. I
So,
got plenty to say about Bill too. Can I say a few things about Bill? Am I allowed?
yep, absolutely. And
So,
and Bill, if you have to, you know, you can cover your ears or something.
so Bill, I just want you to thank you for being a shining example of a teacher. You brought us through your own who you are, and that is a person who is a voracious learner, and you are like a child in terms of learning. And so you showed us that childlike thing and instilled in all of us that we need to have that too. So whatever you were working on with us, if something else came in, you'd show us that too. Remember when you were crazy for what's the guy that wrote Pensativa? Yeah, Claire Fisher. You like, okay, I know we're working on Miles Davis today, but you got to hear this Claire Fisher thing, and like you would like just share everything with us. You allowed me to study privately with you as like a freshman. I just came to your office and said, "Can you help me? I don't know what's going on." And you like sit at the piano, Byron. Okay, here you go, dummy. And like you bang out the notes for me. I don't know if you remember, we got an NEA grant, and you, me, Dave Glasser, Kurt Weiss, Lenny Foy, a couple of us, we did a whole Miles Davis project where we transcribed Kinda Blue and the record Milestones, and you helped us put that together. See, that's a long time ago. You don't even remember. But this is what was instilled in my body, mind, soul, and spirit. First of all, your work ethic. You gave a recital every year of either new music or stuff that you were working on. Every year you'd sit on that stage with a rhythm section or by yourself in Kilburn Hall and give a full-fledged recital. Most teachers, after a couple years, I got tenure, I'm going to sleep. But not Bill Dobbins. Like Bill Dobbins woke up when he got tenure and he went even harder. So your thirst for knowledge for us as students, when you brought in Dave Liebman, you showcased him, you let us play with him, and you did a really cool thing. You would always play like one thing. You never overshadowed the students, but you'd play one thing. But we always waited for that one thing where you played with Dave Liebman. I never forget you guys played In a Sentimental Mood. When you had Red Mitchell, you wrote charts for him, and then you played duets with Red Mitchell, and that blew us all away. So I just wanted to speak to your retirement. I'm sad now, but I hope that you'll still be there to teach me. That's all I'm asking, right?
Any way I can ever help, I'm always happy, Barb. Man, you're one of many of the shining people that have come out of Eastman and are carrying on the music. I can't thank you enough, and I'm just happy that I've had at least some part in it.
No, thank you, Bill. Okay, Jamie, I'm sorry, I'm done.
All right, that was beautiful. And I have to say, you know, I learned a little while ago that Bill's tune was titled Legacy. And Bill, that's what you leave. You leave a remarkable legacy here that will last for decades and decades. And so I love that you titled your piece that. And Byron, thanks so much for offering that. Leo, I'm going to turn to you. You are studying with somebody who, you know, sometimes we just think, well, this is my professor, but he is a legend in the world. And we have these two great jazz artists coming back to school. So how's it feel to be in this band and to know you're going to have an opportunity to play with these guys and premiere these new works?
It's been really exciting, especially just this whole year, having the opportunity to be in Bill's ensemble, especially like his last year. Like it's been like a pleasure, and like the band sounds really great. Like we not only sound good, just like we work really well together, and like especially playing the saxophone section has been really phenomenal this year, and with like Bill's direction. So like the band feels great, and then to have the opportunity to play with like John and Byron, like we're all really excited to get the compositions and to play with you guys on stage. Just especially like as a young jazz musician, like we're still like in our early education, just like to have the opportunity to study with like Bill and to then have opportunities to play with John and Byron is just like really incredible and really inspirational.
Yeah, awesome. It's it is a fun thing, like when Byron was a student here, he was just a student here, and he's gone on to have this fantastic career. When I was here, I was in the band with people like Maria Schneider and Fred Sturm and Jeff Beal, and they went on and had these incredible careers. In 15 or 20 years, Lael, you may be back here, and people will be saying, "Oh, I played in the band with Lael." you know, these people go on and really make a mark in music, and you're part of that legacy. So, I'd love to go back a second. And John, I was wondering, as a composer, right, you've had this fabulous band for so long, and you've written so many great works. And I'm wondering, is there a difference writing for your own band than being commissioned to write for one Eastman Jazz Ensemble, but also as part of a Centennial? And what is that difference, if it exists?
It's it's a yes and no kind of answer because yes, it's different in that I don't know yet the musicians that are going to be performing, but I know some of them, and um, like like Bill does, and all the great writers I know and admire, you learn to write for the musician, not the instrument. So, Bill has a voice, and as does Clay and all the musicians, Jeff. So, not that I, not that I am adverse to challenging them or giving them something, stretching the parameters for them. I'm not sure I want to do that, but at the same time, I'm always cognizant of who they are. And so for the rest of the orchestra, I still try not to write generically. So I have musicians' sounds, band sounds in mind when I write. So even though I know other people are going to be playing them, I'll write. If when I've Rich, of course, Thompson's playing with us here, but the other drummer in the big band, I don't know his or her playing. So I'm writing for Jeff Hamilton, and I'm writing for the sound that my brother used to have on lead alto. I'm writing for etc. And then that gives me some sort of focus and grounding, and also stylistic information as is appropriate. Understanding that a different group of musicians are going to breathe life into this, and I welcome that. I really look forward to that. And the cool thing is that when that happens, and I can kind of go, huh, that's not the way I perceived it, but I like this. And so I'm basically using my familiarity with other people to find out how this new group of friends will bring their textures and their colors to it. That's kind of my, because if I don't do that, then I'm just sort of following the rules. Oh yeah, this is a good range for the trumpet, and this is a good range for the, and if I want to get harmonics, and I can, I can't. That's not music to me, and so it does help me to write for people, understanding that other people are going to be involved.
Yeah, great. Now I have some questions that people have actually written in, but I'm wondering if you have questions that you want to ask each other. I can let you ruminate on that, or if somebody started, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to ask Bill, what was it that, because I was just so impressed as a student with your motivation to continue to be a performer, continue to have an enthusiasm for teaching. And my guess is that the music that you heard, because you were, as I might have said before, you were kind of childlike. You loved showing us this stuff. And I was like, this is in this guy's heart. Like, you know, so was it the music that moved you along, or were there other things that, as you look back at your career at Eastman in particular, what was it that kept that childlike wonder of music?
It was really the music, Byron. I remember very well, before I got a call from Ray Wright. I had never heard of Ray Wright. I didn't know that they had a jazz program at Eastman. And at that time, my wife and I were living in Cleveland, and I was trying to think about, what is it that I want to do in terms of a long-term career? Do I want to go to New York and just, make a living as a freelance musician there? Or I had also been involved in studying contemporary classical music and composition. And I'd gotten an offer to study with a classical composer that was based in London. And one of the things that attracted me to the idea of coming to Eastman was that I knew if I went to New York and made a living just as a freelance musician, that I'd have to play a lot of commercial music. I don't really have so much averse to that, but I did a lot of that when I was in Cleveland, playing for jingle dates and film scores and different kinds of things that were going on then. But the thing that really attracted me was the possibility of just using all my time to just delve into and pass on the music that I really loved and was excited about. So that was my main motivation in taking the job at Eastman. And I found out right when I got there that was just the right place for me.
Hey, can I say another one of the innovations that you did, and John Clayton does this too often, is that your idea of having big bands perform a whole concert with no music.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was the another quick innovation. Nobody was hiring back when you hired him, Barry Harris, to come to colleges to teach because his method was so. It wasn't Abersol like in its, and that's not negative, but in its approach, it was a whole different approach. And
Oh
so you
yeah,
brought,
yeah. Yeah, Barry was, to me, I've always talked about Barry as, to me, one of the greatest teachers of jazz of all time.
yep.
And
Well, you did that.
I learned so much. I learned so much the few times we had him, I think 3 or 4 times over a period of years. And every time, we had such a great time hanging, and I always learned so much from him. Uh, wow.
Yeah, those it's all great memories. And by the way, John Clayton did the same thing to me in terms of teaching. I've taught for you in Washington. What's the name of that place? I forgot.
Actually, I'm wearing the hat now. I
And
just noticed.
okay,
Central
right,
in Port Townsend,
Central.
Washington.
And so we had a meeting with all the teachers, and John said, "Here's how you will teach for me." And he goes, "I don't want to see any music. So if you teach them Sweet Georgia Brown, teach them the changes, and then teach them the melody, and go from there." And that's how we will teach at this school. And it changed my way of teaching because I had to regroup, and but it was good for me, you know. And
Amen, brother.
If I can just chime in too, I don't really have a question uh, for either of you, but you remind me of something I've been sharing with more and more people nowadays, because there's so much talk about um, about how challenging it is to be a musician, how there aren't enough jobs for all the people that are being graduated, which is bunk anyway, because statistics don't apply to art, number one. And statistically, there have never been enough jobs for all the people that are graduating, ever. So why are we talking about it now? We're only instilling a fear-based kind of education in our young people, when in fact that's not the case. And I ask sure you guys have done the same. I ask my friends sometimes, when you and I were going to school, were you thinking about, getting a job? Oh no, man, I was just having fun learning music. I knew something was going to happen, and I think, well, why are we trying to frighten our students, and the reality of the situation, which is what I'm getting around to that you guys are reminding me of, is that the doors of opportunity open for you based on the level of your art, right? And if all of us focus on making sure that our level is represented, as I always tell my students, if a door opens for somebody else, had hoped it would open for you, two things have to happen. Number one, you got to be excited for that person, because when something happens for you, don't you want people to be excited for you, right? So that's number one. Number two, we all have to look in our personal mirrors. I know mine. I'm gonna look. Okay, Clayton, you know you got through the tune, but you know you don't really know those changes. You know you didn't have that melody together. You know you have intonation issues in that register, whatever it is, right? And then determines my focus for the practice room and what I need to get together. And as your levels have risen, more and more opportunities have presented themselves to you. And you know, Bill, you were mentioning some of the ones that opened for Byron, and Jamal, you were talking about some of the things that Bill has embraced. Now, you know, Bill, the WDR called you to be their artistic director, not because you're just a pretty face, right? It
Really?
sorry to break that bad news to you, but
It burst my bubble.
It was your great hair, Bill.
Darlene will never forgive you.
It's really always about the level, right? It's about the music. It's about the level of the music. And once we start helping our young people to understand that, then they can go out and create opportunities. You know, we need to trust that they are going to create, you know, Lael, is that how I pronounce it? I'm sorry. Lael. So Lael, you know, we trust that when you leave Eastman, you're going to use your creativity in other ways. You're not just going to be an awesome player and an awesome composer. You're going to invent stuff and so I'm cool. I need to trust that we put love and information and guidance and hopefully, you know, inspiration behind you, and now leave it alone. You know, I'm not worried about the future of the music. We screwed it up. Now you got to fix it. No, we didn't screw it up, but you see what I'm saying? So that's just listening to Bill and Byron talk just reminds me of what they represent. And you know, bravo. Thank you.
Right back at you, John.
That's fantastic, John. I'll tell you, you know, I think quite a bit about what were our students do, because they have a responsibility, a sense of responsibility. And again, you know, especially with COVID, things closed and music's always been hard. Music's been challenging forever. I have to tell you, one of the most inspirational things I experienced happened during COVID, because we sent our students home when COVID first broke out in March 2020. So the last 7 weeks, they all went home, and they were home all summer by themselves. It's about where they didn't play with any other musicians. And then we brought them back, and these students had to wear masks while they played, bell covers, 6 feet apart, 12 feet apart if you're singing, all kind of things. And, you know, the students were willing to do anything. And when I would talk to them, they said, just don't send us home again. And it said to me, the future of music is going to thrive because people have to make music. These students are so committed to being here and being with each other because they have to make music. So the other part of that is the famous quote, you know, the harder I work, the luckier I get. These students work really hard. It is ultimately the quality of their art. And hopefully they will be ready when that opportunity presents itself for them to take advantage of those opportunities. But Leo, I don't know, what do you and your classmates talk about? Do you talk about what am I going to do in the future? Or are you just talking about how awesome last night's concert was?
It's kind of a mix of everything. Some of my friends, we do a lot talk about like what like kind of our aspirations are and like what we want to do with our music and like our like artistic like outlets for stuff, because it's varied, like especially in the junior class, like there's kind of a wide range of what we like to do. Like there's a lot of people who have been really getting into like the electronic side of like music, and doing a lot of like AME courses at U of R. And then like I'm personally really into like history and like big band playing. So we're like kind of very all over the place. So we'll talk about that, but we also like right now it's like recital season, so like there's 3 jazz recitals today. So like after the recitals we're always like talking about like how our like classmates have inspired us and like all the music that we want to learn after we played with other people or like watched our like classmates. And then also about like the shows we've gone to see. I know over spring break a lot of people went down to New York to see Maria Schneider, because a lot of the in New Jazz with Dave Ravello, a lot of the people are about to be playing with Maria. And so there was just like kind of a general, we're like a very good community and everybody's really supportive of each other and like our different like musical ideas.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, but this is a question for Byron, John, and Bill. When you were 22 years old, did you think you'd be doing today what you're doing?
No, absolutely not. I, I, I don't know if I had the foresight that a lot of the young people have now. Um, I just knew I had to play music. That's all, and I knew I love bass, and I just followed my heart.
Yeah.
No, I would have never imagined, look, Darlene and I have talked about this many times, but I would never have imagined in my wildest dreams when I was 22 that I would have done a fraction of the things that I've done. And I think probably a lot of it just gets back to maybe what Byron was talking about, that music has always been so fascinating to me that nobody ever had to tell me to keep practicing or to work hard or any of that stuff, because I just enjoyed being involved with music so much. And now looking back, it's really quite inspiring, all the experiences and musical collaborations that it's brought me to. I'm so grateful, and yeah, still interested in what's going to happen for the years to come. The sky's the limit.
That's great. Byron, you could have the last word on this.
Yeah, I just always knew I wanted to play the trumpet. I didn't know where that would go. So, like John, I just was kind of led by my heart. But then I always had this sort of inspiration from older musicians, including John, because I want him to know that he is older than me.
And we share the same birth date.
We do. That's right. Same birthday.
Wow.
And for all of you that want to send us money, August 20th. It would be. So
I'm older.
But he's older. Yes, he's older. So you need less money. I need more.
Oh, no.
I still got a kid in college. So. But I just want to tell you one quick thing that inspired me that's Eastman related, and it helped me move through this path. Rayburn Bright had Clark Terry here, and I think Bill played a couple songs on that concert. And Ray Wright did the hippest thing, and I didn't know why he did this. He says Clark was staying across the street at it was the East Avenue Hotel. I don't know if it's still called that. And he said, "Would you go pick up Clark Terry and bring him to rehearsal? It's right across the street." I said, "Sure." I was like, "That's weird, though. Why am I doing this?" So I go and I called his room and said, "Hey, I'm here to pick up Mr. Terry. Are you ready?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm not ready yet. Come up to my room." I got to hang out with Clark Terry for like 45 minutes in his room. And so that's what Ray Wright was hoping, I think. It's like maybe a trumpet player could get exposed to another trumpet player, but the Clark Terry. And in that interaction, we started talking trumpet. He told me what to practice, what to do. Played for him in the jazz ensemble. I'm ready to graduate. I said, "Clark, what do I do? I'm ready to graduate." He says, "I'm going to call Lionel Hampton for you." All right. So I do that gig. I'm ready to leave Lionel Hampton. "Clark, what should I do?" "I'm going to call Woody Herman's band for you." Do Woody Herman's band. "Clark, what should I do?" "I'm calling Count Basie's band for you." and they'll take you. So that was just like one interaction. So hopefully I did the thing that JMO said, the more practice, the luckier I get. And then my Eastman experience was really pivotal on that. To have the inspiration of Bill, Ray Wright, Ray Ricker, and that whole team was amazing for me. So this is my Eastman commercial.
Always welcome. And, I wish we could go on, but I'm going to wrap this up here. I'm so looking forward to having you back in Rochester, and John, to welcoming you here, and to what I know is going to be a truly remarkable night, both for the music, but also, Bill, really in honor of your incredible legacy at Eastman in all the years. And it's hard for me to think, Bill was a professor when I was a student here. And so it's hard for me to think of the jazz program without you. And fortunately, we know, you're always going to be a part of what we do here. You've sunk deep, deep roots.
Thank you, Jamal. I appreciate it.
So to all of you, again, first, thanks to John and Bill, Byron and Lael for a really wonderful conversation. And I hope that all of you who are watching have enjoyed this behind the scenes peek into just the joy that this centennial has brought to us. And this commissioning project has been so special. I want to give a special word of thanks to Sue and Rick Williams, who is through their generosity that enabled us to commission both Bill and John for these works. So thanks so much to them. And I hope all of you will join us tomorrow night, May 2nd, 7:30, for the Eastman Jazz Ensemble concert. And you can join us in person. I'd say if you're within 400 or 500 miles of Rochester, just drive on in and catch the concert live. But if you can't, you can catch it live stream. Just go to our homepage, and in the lower right-hand corner, you'll find a link to live stream the concert. So to all of you, thanks for being with us. This is the last of our conversations this year, but we've had so much fun. Hopefully we'll keep it going next year. And to all of you on the screen, again, thanks so much for being part of this.
Thank you, Jamal.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.